Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Dada, with your 2025 AEW WrestleDream Not So Instant Analysis. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are here technically less than 24 hours after AEW WrestleDream went off the air to break down every single thing that happened on the show. For those of you who are longtime listeners, you know that the goal here at Getting Over is to provide you with a true instant analysis, a podcast that we tape as soon as premium live events and pay-per-views go off the air. For those of you who may be listening for the first time, I will explain the only reason that this show was not published immediately after AEW WrestleDream is really a combination of reasons. First, the feed I was watching stopped working midway through the show, wasn't able to finish it on Saturday night. Second, when I did finish the show Sunday morning, a lot of stuff happened in the world of college football and professional football for that matter. And because my full-time job is in sports, I wasn't able to have the time to sit down and actually record this podcast until just around 5 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. So we're a bit further delayed than, of course, we want to be, but there's still plenty of runway between now and AEW Dynamite on Wednesday for all of you to enjoy this performance-enhancing audio and have it permeate your ear holes. So before we get into the entire analysis of AEW WrestleDream, allow the Silver King to remind you off the top that at this show
it's all about Defy.
So please head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. On Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show. And of course, you can vote in pre- and post-show polls surrounding pay-per-views, just like AEW WrestleDream. On YouTube, you get full-length audio episodes that you can listen to and full-length video interviews published to our channel across the board, as I said, at Getting Overcast. Now, at this juncture of the show, in an instant analysis, the Silver King would usually crack open a cold one, except, as I said, I'm doing the show myself, so I don't want a good drink to go bad. And I'm taping this in the middle of an NFL Sunday, so I'm still working. Can't exactly do that. That said, we are going to break down every single thing that happened across AEW WrestleDream 2025. We're going to go through the entire card. We'll give you the results of the matches, immediate thoughts on them, and what we believe may go forward, at least in some of the storylines. So let's kick it off where WrestleDream concluded. Darby Allin against Jon Moxley in an I Quit match. Like I said, this wound up main eventing the show, which was not only appropriate, it's what we wanted in the first place. I believe Darby introduced a new logo, which kind of piqued my interest a little bit because he literally has the same initials as Dean Ambrose, which I never really connected until now. The logo is not that dissimilar. Just more proof that this match should have been a lights out stipulation, just considering I believe it was only the second time a non-AEW title match main evented an AEW pay-per-view without a lights out stipulation, the other being Sting's retirement tag team match. Anyway, Darby laid the flag down in the middle of the ring, literally at the bell, leading to AEW chants and making the entire match about the company. Mox wiped his feet on the flag, even though the entire gimmick of the Death Riders has been to save AEW from mediocrity. So I'm just kind of at a loss in terms of the concept here. Darby bled from the mouth and ear immediately, got choked with a chain. Then Mox jammed a skewer literally under his fingernail. Family-friendly entertainment for sure. Darby choked Mox over the ropes with the flag before getting a thumb to the eye with Marina Shafir saving Mox from a coffin drop on the apron. Mox whipped him with a belt. Darby begged for more. He sprayed lighter fluid in Mox's eyes and on his body before pepper spraying a few of the Death Riders, who waited until then to run down to the ring. But despite the stakes of this match, they were not all at the show because for some reason, we can never get the entirety of the Death Riders together. So Mox is wiping lighter fluid off his body. 5 other people are ringside, none of them helping him despite being heels. Mox grabs and uses a taser after Shafir low-blowed Allin, hitting a stomp and a paradigm shift into a chair on top of that. Darby flipped double birds while being choked out, then got tossed by Claudio Castagnoli out of the ring onto the announce table, repeating the spot we saw a couple weeks ago in AEW and previously in NXT. Pac then dragged Darby's lifeless body all the way around the ring, with Allin eating Death Rider through 2 tables. So he's been non-competitive in this match. Fans chanted, "This is murder." Mox screamed at the referee for not ending the match, as Darby, who was dead behind the eyes, basically just stared and refused to quit. So the Death Riders, I shit you not, put a small fish tank in the ring and filled it with water. This was prepared. They had coolers ringside and a fish tank, and even in kayfabe, they knew that they were going to do this. So Darby literally crawls himself over to the fish tank, puts his head over the water. That way Mox could drown him. Then he flails his arms rather than just pushing this tiny little tank over. The third time he attempted to be drowned, Mox basically was washing his hair. That's at least what it looked like to me. So then, after 20 minutes and nary a babyface in the entire backstage area coming to help this guy, the lights go out. You knew what was coming next. Sting, who retired less than 18 months ago, suddenly appeared in the ring with a baseball bat. White hair, long white beard with the makeup. The rest of the male Death Riders are suddenly not there. He chokes Mox with the bat. Then 2 of them run in and get taken out. Sting breaks the fish tank with the bat. Then he throws Darby the bat, and he just leaves. Shafir gets in his face. He ducks a punch, picks her up, carries her backstage. So now the ring is covered in water. The Death Riders are permanently disabled after taking a single bat shot from Sting. And Darby, who was nearly dead a moment ago, has a bat against Mox, who has taken 0 punishment to this point in the match. So Darby landed a bunch of bat shots, let's say 4, maybe 5. He does a Scorpion Death Drop with the flag and then a Coffin Drop. Then he locks in the Scorpion Death Lock, and Mox quits in an instant. The idea, I guess, being that the bat shot to the knee was enough to get him to literally say, "I quit." Not tap out, but say, "I quit" immediately. Darby then celebrates with the flag as the show ended because, of course, AEW is the babyface and the company is what won here. You cannot sit there and tell me this was a good match. I refuse to accept that opinion, and I am always someone on this show who says, to each their own, intelligent people can disagree. The booking here was absolutely ridiculous, and I already laid out for you why, so I'm not going to waste my time going over every single detail. But the Sting return and the quick finish on top of the absurdity of Darby somehow being able to do all of this stuff after losing his life 3 different times, it was so over the top. It's clear to me now that Darby was supposed to be the one to win the title off Mox. Tony Khan, I guess, caved to the pressure of switching it earlier because the booking was not working. But with the flag and putting AEW over, remember the literal gimmick coming in is that AEW equals freedom. There's no doubt that it was supposed to be Darby holding the title and the flag together. AEW was booked as the babyface here, and it always is. Death Riders, which just added a member, by the way, and got one back, have now lost 2 major feuds consecutively. What are they anymore? I give credit to Darby for taking all that punishment, and specifically Claudio for doing that toss into the announce table perfectly. It was the only spot of the match I absolutely enjoyed, even if it was immediately repetitive from literally the last 6 weeks of things that we've seen. But the idea that no babyface on the entire roster is willing to help Darby, and he has to rely on a 66-year-old retired Sting, who was, by the way, able to take out an entire faction by himself, following a match in which there was hardly any wrestling, just Mox brutalizing Darby and Allin pretty much not able to do anything about it. And then at the end, Mox just quits after less than 90 seconds of offense and less than 5 seconds of the Scorpion Deathlock. I don't want to hear that this is his character. He is not all talk and a pure coward like people are trying to claim as the reasoning here. When Darby got the bat, Mox put it on his head and said, "Break my skull with this bat," okay? And I don't want to hear that a little bit of pain and he chickens out. No, because we've seen him take submissions and similar situations for much longer than this before, okay? We've seen him take punishment. This was just the out they took to get the result. I don't even know how to grade this, as so often happens with AEW matches like this. 2.75 stars C+? I guess. Darby was the right and necessary winner. The Sting return was a moment for the crowd, but don't forget, this is a crowd that criticizes WWE for, hanging on moments rather than anything else, right? But the entire match here was one dude just taking punishment and bumps, which was extremely similar, by the way, to the prior match, the AEW Championship match on this show. You cannot just have one dude survive multiple attempts at murder from 5 people and then another quit in seconds after being put in a wrestling hold and not taking any real punishment. By the way, if you're wondering why this match wasn't a bloody mess, it's because the Missouri Sports Commission basically doesn't allow that. So that's one of the reasons they wrestled the way they did, and one of the reasons they did some of these spots. There were reports out there that Tony Khan turned down like 2 handfuls of spots that were suggested by these guys for the match. I would love to know what those were. And I would love to know if it was Darby taking all the punishment from them, because again, the way this was booked, completely mind-boggling to me. And if you like it, I'm not saying like, don't listen to that show because we disagree or anything. I'm not trying to call you stupid or anything like that, but I don't understand. I can't accept the opinion that this match was good, because it just wasn't. And I pretty much never say that, but I do here. Now, before we move on to the rest of the show, allow the Silver King to remind you that here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. It is literally less than the price of a coffee these days. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You get a ton of extras, but most importantly, you contribute financially to the continuation of this show. We don't have ads. We don't throw stuff at you. That's all we're asking for. Please support us. Get some extra stuff. We would greatly appreciate it. AEW Championship, Hangman Page defending against Samoa Joe. Aggressiveness from the bell early from Joe, who was a full heel in this match. Page started bleeding from the mouth hard way from a running kick, which made it look so much better than a blade job. Joe marked him with an STO, beat his ass for a while unabated, including a powerbomb, transitioned into an STF, which I believed was a John Cena homage. Commentary claimed it was for local talent Lou Thez. So that's possible. Anyway, it was transitioned into a crossface. Hangman finally came back with a sunset flip powerbomb, only to get locked in a coquina clutch for a rope break. Page then flipped out of a muscle buster, hitting Deadeye for a 2.9. Hangman then landed 3 consecutive buckshot lariats. The first 2, Joe did not fall onto his back, ultimately for the 1-2-3 to win the match. This was extremely one-sided. Page overcame the adversity in the ring at the end. The booking of this match and it not being in the main event proved what we said all along about it kind of getting thrown on the card without any real effort. It was a way to keep Joe looking like a tough dude, yet put over Page as a worthy champion, given he overcame the adversity, beat the big man. It just didn't really make for a great match when all was said and done, so I was at 3.5 stars and a B. Though it had a great finish, the crowd got super hyped from those consecutive buckshots, and it was pretty cool for him to do all 3 of those in succession. And honestly, really impressive that Hangman was able to do that move 3 times in a row that late in a match. That takes crazy stamina, so credit to him for that. So the Ops come out after the bell. They lift Joe to his feet, get the crowd to chant for him. Page offered a hand that he shook and then raised before turning and clotheslining him with the entire group, yes, including Katsuyori Shibata, turning heel. It sounded like Joe told Page he wasn't worthy of the title before hitting him over the head with it. Joe then did a muscle buster on Page into the AEW title. Maybe Hangman needs to look inward and determine why even the other baby faces in the company just hate him. Seems like a him problem, not a them problem. In all seriousness, it was a nice heel turn. But the question is, to what end? Is Joe going to get another title match with Hangman? If not, perhaps this is leading just to the start of a blood and guts build, although I thought the women were doing that match. With new trios number 1 contenders that we'll talk about later basically being baby faces, that does set up opposite sides for that eventual match. I just don't fully understand why you would do this full turn after the title match rather than before it. But it was well done. It was unexpected considering the involvement of Shibata. And that trio as heels is much, much more entertaining. The only real problem is it's another heel group for a company that has way, way, way too many heel groups. So outside of conglomeration, which isn't really much of anything, who's combating these dudes, especially when the baby faces don't like helping each other? It's extremely odd. Women's Championship, Chris Statlander defending against Toni Storm. This was surprisingly early on the card, fifth to last. Both women got video package entrances, with Toni emerging in white face paint with wet hair for some reason. Stat then got an entire alien entrance, which, as I've said before, cannot believe they just gave her the title and transitioned her back to that with no explanation. The first stupid tweet that AEW put on the screen during this said, quote, "I can't believe we're about to see an alien wrestle a movie star." Well, believe it, dude. Storm hit a nice Tiger Driver, then some type of cradle slam. They exchanged submission holds before Stat landed a spinning Michinoku Driver. Storm landed hip attack, but Stat did a handstand to prevent Storm Zero, hitting a 450 as Excalibur made a Mauro Ranallo-like Wu-Tang Clan reference, and I do have to respect that from him. Toni then hit her finisher Storm Zero for a regular near fall. The crowd didn't even buy it. Stat did the seatbelt. Then they each no-soul German suplexes. Chris landed her finisher, Saturday Night Fever, but rather than go for the cover, she did an extremely weak neck lock with her legs that Storm sold, despite never being in any physical danger, considering she was able to breathe and even speak loudly. "Effing kill me," she said. So Stat stood up, hit Saturday Night Fever, and retained the title. Storm gave her the championship and hugged her after the bell. I'm not sure anyone really thought through like the visuals or the logic of that finish. Between that and the no-selling, this was my worst rated match at the time it ended. Stat going over Storm clean and definitively, that was most important, and that got accomplished. But I'm at like 3.25 stars B. It was fine. They didn't book this title change, Stat's character change, or anything around this as well as they could have. The crowd was relatively dead for it overall, and it was really tough to blame them because they didn't give you much to cheer for. So Mercedes Moné interrupted Stat's post-match celebration as it was announced earlier in the day she would be doing a title versus title match against a mystery opponent. Over the weekend, Moné won what she's claiming to be her 10th title. In reality, for those who want to keep an accurate track here, one of her titles that she has is literally defunct. Another is the Owen, which is not a title, but a representation of a trophy. So Moné entered this match as the longest reigning TBS champion, yes, but with only 8 real titles, as she tries to compare herself to Ultimo Dragon, who had 11 legit titles at once, 10 singles and 1/3 of a trios belt. She called herself Ultimo Moné, then wondered who would be coming at her, and it was Mina Shirakawa, who is the ROH TV champion. Check that. She is not the ROH TV champion. She is the interim ROH TV champion. Interim. So yeah. Mercedes was dressed like Selena, by the way. I think she wrestled a match in Mexico and had that gear. So we had title versus title, Moné Shirakawa. This effing match went 16 minutes. I couldn't believe it. Shirakawa did a flying sling blade back fist and a second figure 4 attempt. Mercedes tried to cheat with rope leverage. Then she cornered the referee, poked Mina in the eyes, put in statement maker before a brief counter sequence and Moné maker for a rope break, which was the first moment that got a legit pop, as fans actually thought in that moment Mercedes would lose because now she has the TBS record. Moné then won with a backslide, barely putting her foot on the bottom rope for basically no extra leverage to win the title, to win the interim title. So she now has 9 real titles, claiming 11, 8 if you want to say, because this is interim, but she's claiming 11. There's confetti after the bell. So Stat then shows up, throws her title down, basically hits a Samoan drop on Moné, and she stood tall at the end. The match was 3 stars B-, weaker than the one that preceded it. This was also the third time Mina lost to Mercedes with the title on the line. Completely unnecessary to even do this. We've talked so many times about these women who get title opportunity after title opportunity, and they just lose every single time. Kyle O'Reilly, the same thing goes for him. It's like, why do they keep challenging if they're never going to win and we know as fans that they're never going to win? But even worse, perhaps, is that the way this was promoted, fans thought it was going to be a surprise name like Suri, and instead, it was just a rostered talent in a match that we've seen many times before. So it was a letdown opponent, a letdown result. And again, Mina's an interim champion, so it's not even like she won a real title. The biggest problem is that the answer to this question, where does it go from here, doesn't seem to have a valuable response. It looks like they've set up Stat versus Moné. It did in this moment. So the woman who appeared to win a not a number 1 contendership match earlier in the show even though it was a women's singles match on a pay-per-view, is not the number one contender. And AEW is seemingly doing another champion versus champion match, as they have time and again all freaking year with every single division in the company, and they're running that at full gear. The only way this can resolve itself in a valuable manner is if Monet first loses to Stat, then drops the TBS title in the ensuing weeks, and then one by one drops all her titles to women from all these promotions around the world. Putting over the better part of 10 women, let's say, while giving those shows value, that would be positive. And maybe that's what happens. But it's gone on so long at this point, and she just keeps adding bullshit titles. Do you really care about it anymore? Particularly when the two goals, breaking Jade Cargill's record and just amassing titles without rhyme or reason, were so transparent from the beginning. It'd be one thing if Mercedes built to all of these title wins. They had storylines and she had rivalries with these people, but 80% of them just happened. It's pretty bad booking, man. It's also crazy to me how Mercedes gets a pass for all of this when she's more Mercedes Hogan than Becky Lynch or Sami Zayn ever have been. She literally does not lose except for one match to Tony. Remember when she was going to put over this person or that person, Athena? People thought she was going to put her over. Hysterical. By the way, I think she has another title match. So by the time you hear this, she might be claiming 12 and she may legitimately have 9 or 10, depending how you want to parse it. On the back end of all of this was a depressing segment meant to be depressing, with Storm and Shirakawa realizing they had lost everything. So it seems like they're going to be put together as a tag team, which makes them now the favorites to be the inaugural champions, perhaps instead of all the teams that have actually been developed on TV over the last few months. We'll see. The bracket finally comes out on Wednesday. Tag Team Championship, Brodito versus Konosuke Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada. Interestingly, Takeshita is the first wrestler I've ever seen who actually looks good wearing the new IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. It just works well with his body shape and also his logo too. But otherwise, it's such an ugly title. Brodito did the Macarena in the middle of a match against two of the best wrestlers in the world, the Macarena. Okada flicked off the camera when Takeshita landed in front of him, thinking it was for him. Takeshita took a nasty drop kick with his head banging off the bottom turnbuckle. No one checked on him. Brody King hit a couple nice cannonballs. Bandito no-sold a German suplex, then fully flipped out of the wheelbarrow German. Takeshita then no-sold a Poison Rana, hitting Raging Fire on King, but selling his own move so Bandito could land a Shooting Star Press. Okada tagged himself in late, but Bandito countered Rainmaker, then flipped over King for a tope into Takeshita, who later hit a Cradle Tombstone and an awesome wheelbarrow German on King, which he no-sold immediately after taking a tombstone. So he takes a tombstone and a wheelbarrow German suplex and no-sells it. Okada did a beautiful anti-air dropkick on a flying Bandito, which honestly was the move of the entire match, before a 4-way German suplex spot that had the heels as like the Oreo filling. Commentary then told us AEW has the best tag team wrestling in the world. I mean, if you like tornado matches without that stipulation that have no rules and no selling, then I guess you can make that case. Okada accidentally hit Takeshita with Rainmaker, but smiled and gave him the finger afterward, kind of like below his waist, just kind of an F you. That allowed Bandito to catch him with a nice knee, but he was unable to hit 21-plex, selling a shoulder. King, for the third time in the match, told Bandito, never stop fighting. So he just threw himself out of the ring, King did, with a tope suicida, and Bandito, who couldn't use 2 arms to hit the 21-plex, is able to do it with 1 arm for the title retention. The entire point of this match, I just want to make this very clear. The entire point of this match was for Bandito to pin Okada. That way a certain someone could name him the Wrestler of the Year. I just want you to remember that I said it seeing this match live because it was incredibly transparent. And that is not how wrestling should be booked. Not for one person's praise. It was a fantastic match overall with 4 great wrestlers putting on a show. You're just not going to get me that crazy hype with so much no-selling and bullshit throughout. I'm not sure it's been explained why Bandito, who's the ROH champion, needs King as his personal motivator. They do make a great team, though. They also did the Macarena again, by the way, in celebration after the bell, which was far more appropriate. The Okada-Takeshita heat was really the best part of this match. It continued developing their storyline, which one presumes would lead into 1 or 2 title matches. I could definitely see Okada-Takeshita happening on a New Japan show, maybe even Wrestle Kingdom. I'd really like to go higher for this match, but so much of it was ridiculous. I'm at 4.25 stars and an A. It really should be higher. I just can't get there with so much criticism. It was my favorite match of the night from an entertainment standpoint when it ended, and I would love to watch this again. I just wish the formation was a little bit better and the purpose was not as transparent. That's all. TNT Championship, Kyle Fletcher against Mark Briscoe. There was a Cactus Jack elbow off the apron by Briscoe, followed by a tope suicida into a seated Fletcher before costing himself, missing a cannonball off the apron. It was a 50-50 match with some great exchanges, including a series of boots. Fletcher countered a J Driller into a half-and-half suplex and a last ride Liger bomb. Briscoe avoided the turnbuckle brainbuster, only to eat a superplex. He answered with J Driller on the ring apron, obviously unable to cover ringside, but he missed Froggy Bow back inside, only to land it with Fletcher balancing himself horizontally on the top rope, which was obviously just stupid. Briscoe then landed a standing Froggy Bow to the outside and a third regular one inside for a 2.9 falls finish. After more back and forth, Briscoe completely no-sold another half-and-half suplex, hitting J Driller with a delayed cover for a fingertip 2.9 rope break. Great job by Fletcher there. He grabbed the referee to avoid cutthroat, shoving Briscoe into the ref, hitting a low blow, and then a brainbuster for a 2.9 falls finish. So Fletcher followed with a snake eyes and a turnbuckle brainbuster, crawling over to Briscoe, covering and retaining his title. Fantastic match. The question remains when AEW will actually strap up Briscoe. We discussed this on the Ultimate Preview. He is their quintessential underdog, but he never gets the job done. One could argue this match was far too close for him not to win, but as we said, with Fletcher just winning the TNT title and being a future main event champion, this did not feel like the spot for him to actually lose. That's where you, though, as a booker, have to decide how far to go in a match like this. Not every bout has to be full effort trying to get a 5-star rating. I mean, every match should be full effort. Obviously, the competitors should do everything they can to put on a good match, but they don't all need to be booked to be the match of the night. This probably would have been better off not being as close. But what we got was tremendous. It's an A. I'm kind of on the border between 4.25 stars and 4.5. But man, this was as good as the tag team match, just completely different. This was a lot more logical and sensible, but that match had much better spots that entertained me more. El Clone walked out, stood next to Fletcher for no reason whatsoever after the bell. Conglomeration then consoled Briscoe. That all led to nothing. Clone coming out was so freaking weird. We had the Hurt Syndicate against the Demand in a tornado match. This was made into a number one contendership for the trios titles earlier Saturday. Of the 3 potential number one contendership matches that could have been given this designation, this was easily the least important of them. But hey, it was something. It didn't change my prediction of Syndicate. The match quickly devolved into no disqualification, with Shelton Benjamin getting bombed into Bobby Lashley through a table. So MVP got surrounded 3-on-1. The heels were toying with him, not at all interested in finishing the job, winning the match, becoming number one contenders. So the faces respawned with Ricochet taking a Dominator and a superplex as GOA got under Lashley for a Tower of Doom. The best spot was Benjamin preventing a Tope Con Hero, grabbing Ricochet around the waist and defenestrating him out of the ring with a German suplex. Then he followed with his own Tope, drilling MVP in the mouth with his boot. That was unfortunate, but I loved that sequence. Syndicate then appeared to surround Ricochet 3-on-1, but one of the other dudes threw him out of the ring, took the beating, and took the L. This was my favorite match of the first 4 on the card. That despite what I said coming in, that I was sick of the feud. It had been run into the ground with my anticipation of this match paling in comparison to the first on the last pay-per-view that they ran. I disagreed with the booking decision, but Syndicate against the Op should be a hell of a match when it happens. And by the way, it's happening immediately on Dynamite. I thought they were going to save it for Full Gear. Time and again, when it comes to Ricochet, AEW just doesn't book him to actually succeed over bigger stars. Does that sound familiar? The Demand needed elevation. Syndicate did not. And it's weird that Syndicate are now going for a title when just weeks ago MVP said he shouldn't be wrestling anymore in regulation matches. 3.75 stars B+. The plus is basically for the Benjamin and Ricochet sequence. Shelton wrestling to this level at age 50 is frankly insane. Dude is an absolute beast. Jurassic Express fought the Young Bucks in a $500,000 money match. I won't go into the absurd money match shit because it's late and I've already done plenty on that, through multiple weeks and months on the show. The Bucks entrance included an accounting showing them in the red, so therefore they didn't get anything special. because apparently wrestlers pay for their own entrances in AEW. This was moronic. The faces used a fan sign early. Matt Jackson hit sliced bread off the barricade. There was a fast sequence ending with BTE trigger on Jack Perry for a false finish. Luchasaurus prevented TK Driver with Perry hitting a Poison Rana and countdown to extinction on Nick for the win. Now, it's possible, I want to say likely, I missed a near fall or two in this match. For some reason, the feed I was watching just like skipped over, and I was like, did I miss 30 seconds? Did I miss 4 minutes? I really couldn't tell what happened. I believe I picked the Bucks on the Ultimate Preview, assuming they would become number one contenders coming out of it, because there's babyface champions the other side in Brodito. In retrospect, it made a lot more sense to have Jurassic Express win, continue their momentum after reforming. That was a bad call by me and a right call by AEW here. The match was hype. It was the best of the first 3 on the card. I cannot grade it fully because I didn't really see what I hear was a significant sequence in the match, but it was like borderline A- from what I did see, and it wouldn't have gone any higher than 4.25 stars regardless of whatever sequence of near falls existed, which we've seen myriad ways in Young Bucks matches. I will reiterate, I cannot stand this Bucks gimmick. It's like they're trying to do bum-ass Corbin, but they don't sell it. They just complain. I want to see them broke. I want to see them destitute. I don't just want them in the arena saying, we don't have money and we can't have an entrance. It's really half-assing it. So the faces tried to shake the heels' hands after the bell, even offered money or something. When Don Callis' family jobbers randomly attacked them from behind, the Bucks looked like they were going to stand up to them, but instead they walked away slowly, allowing Kenny Omega's music to hit. He stormed past them for the save. They refused to help. I could have sworn when this was happening, the idea was for the Bucks to double back, save, turn babyface, and then get in the money again. The booking of this had the crowd primed to cheer the Bucks, which would have been refreshing because the heel run's gone stale. Instead, it was just about getting Omega on the show when both of his planned matches got canceled. And then he buried the hatchet with Jack, when he really should not have, considering the level of devastation and pain he experienced in that prior attack. So now you have Jack Perry and Kyle Fletcher, who both tried to destroy this man. And he's just okay with not getting revenge on them right now. It's pretty disappointing, man. Jamie Hayter fought Thekla. The stipulation of everyone being banned from ringside was added Saturday. That alone would have changed my prediction. There was a whole deal with Lou Thesz's wife because AEW tries to glom on to wrestling history. Thekla hit a nice crossbody ringside, taunted her. Hayter escaped a tarantula, but botched whatever was to follow. They brawled on the ropes with Thekla sitting up from the Tree of Woe, which was supposed to be a major spot. Hayter then got caught in an octopus hold, but powered out of a backbreaker. She got another rope break on a cool crucifix-style submission. Then Thekla randomly got prevented from using her belt by the referee, which did not really factor into anything else. Thekla took half an hour doing her spider shit, which allowed Hayter time to regroup, hit a lariat, and then Haterade and get the win. That finish, it just proved how dumb it is when Thekla does that. I've been saying this for months now. It takes her forever to move her body out of that position, which delays her offense, making it look bad. And in kayfabe, it's idiotic because it allows your opponent time to recover. Starting the show with 2 non-title, non-number one contendership TV matches was a decision, but the crowd responded better than I expected here, considering the match was basically just a brawl, so kudos to them. I was a bit surprised AEW didn't let Thekla win with the numbers advantage, saving Hayter's presumed number one contendership, which again was not technically on the line here for another show. But whatever, I mean, congrats to Jamie. A fine TV match. It would have been a TV main event if they had a number one contendership stipulation. I'm glad that we got 3 women's matches on WrestleDream. Did this belong on the card? It really didn't. 3.5 stars and a B. And lastly, from technically the main card, FTR fought Jet Speed. This started on the tailgate brawl, but AEW did a gimmick where the match did not finish on the pre-show, so they ran it into the main card with Pyro going off while they were doing a hockey fight. Did they think people would specifically go and spend $50 to see the remainder of this specific match? I was confused by the logic of that. Cash Wheeler did a nice gory bomb of Speedball into the apron before FTR hit Shatter Machine, leaving Speedball in clear view unbothered to break the fall with a shooting star knee drop. Power and Glory and Kevin Knight's Frog Splash both got thwarted with double knees before a 2.9. The finish came rather suddenly, with Stokely holding Speedball's feet down after Dax Harwood counter him over the ropes into a short crossbody, stayed right on top of him, 1, 2, 3. The crowd was on fire for this match. It was certainly pushed to that type of reaction by production and the wrestlers. When you combine the speed of the match with the pyro, it made for an electric start to the show, even if it was extremely odd the way it was done. I want to say the WCW tried to do this back in the day. The grade is tough since I didn't see the start of the match, but I'd say 3.75 stars B+. Considering it was a literal TV match without any stakes, it should not have been on the main card. I understood the effort, though, and I appreciated the effort also of all four wrestlers here to try to put something on that was really exciting. The Conglomeration and Roderick Strong fought the Death Riders on the Tailgate Brawl. Pac pinned Tomohiro Ishii, as we expected here. The Conglomeration got their own entrance after being together for like a year. It was like a 90s sitcom-themed whole deal video package, and it was actually great. The problem is, I fear it's a one-off, or that it's just an entrance. If Conglomeration was actually booked weekly, like they were in a 90s sitcom, all of their backstage segments and such, no longer doing the hype Briscoe promos where he rants into the screen, not being interviewed by other people backstage, just commiserating together, talking like the equivalent of the Judgment Day Clubhouse, but it's a 90s sitcom, that would be extremely unique and interesting. It might be my favorite thing that AEW does. I highly doubt that's the plan, but maybe I'll be surprised. Fingers crossed, because that video package and the vibes it gave off, it created that idea in my head, and now I want to see it. And if they're not going to do it, I hope another wrestling promotion does it. Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron fought Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. Tailgate Brawl, Willow pinned Penelope, which I believe I called specifically. The heels dressed as Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. Then you had Eddie Kingston and Hook against a TBA opponent. The surprise opponents were the Frat House. They got a whole roster. They love bringing in people surprised. But this is the booking to convince people to buy a pay-per-view. No! So that wraps up our AEW WrestleDream 2025 instant analysis. All that leaves is for us to grade the show, and let's kick that off with a reminder of our pre-show expectation grades. The Silver King on the Ultimate Preview dropped an 88 out of 100, a B+. I figured both main events would deliver. I was hoping, obviously, the I Quit match was last, and I thought those guys could put on something that was super memorable, even if it wasn't particularly my taste. As you know, it wasn't my taste, but it also was extremely rough in totality. Anyway, my take was 88 out of 100, B+ coming in. All of you are getting overheads, our listeners who got to vote on Twitter. 18% of you were in the A range, 36.5% were both B+ to B and B- to C+, and 9% of you were expecting a C or lower. That averaged out to an 87 out of 100, a B+. So we were pretty much in the same range, expecting a B+. And again, one of the issues with this show was basically stakes. There were a lot of matches on this card that were just there, and there were a lot more that had titles on the line, but the outcomes were entirely predictable. And that's, as we just broke down one by one, we predicted them. It showed how predictable the show was, and that coming in allowed expectations to drag a little bit. In terms of our post-show grades, I'll go with all of yours first, because you guys voted initially as soon as the show went off the air on Twitter. I, of course, didn't finish the show until Sunday morning. All of you came in 3% A+ to A, 17% A- to B+, 53% B to B-, 27% C+ or lower. That averaged out to an 84 out of 100 and a B, lowest B possible. I was really surprised with those grades. Not so much the 53% B to B- or the ones that were above that, because obviously from a work rate standpoint, there's a lot of people who just love great matches and they don't care about storylines or how logical they are, whatever the case. But 27% C+ or lower really surprised me, because even if you felt exactly like I did and you hated the main event or seriously did not like the main event, the rest of the show had some damn good wrestling on it, some really exciting sequences. So I don't necessarily know how you could go that low. So I completely disagree with the 84, but I do completely agree with the B. The main event was terrible, as I outlined. The AEW title match was underwhelming. The Mercedes deal was a total waste of time. The women's title match was lackluster. Most of the best matches were those I cared least about. And like I said, I find an 84 to be seriously unfair. Though the overall quality of the show, I do agree, did not live up to expectations and was in the B range. I'm at an 86 out of 100, the highest B that I can possibly give. I just didn't feel it met the criteria of a B+ show when your final 2 matches and like 4 of your final 5 disappointed, even if the front load of the card was really solid. So that's why that's my grade. I understand if some of you listening disagree. Look, we've had this conversation about AEW. They were really, really strong going into All In. And when football season starts, I don't know if it's because Tony Khan gets distracted or it's just the time of year. I mean, we used to see it with WWE all the time. It was largely us feeling like they took their foot off the gas because of the NFL competition. That's not the case with AEW. They don't compete with the NFL on a individual day basis. They actually program their stuff so as to not compete with the NFL. So maybe it's Tony Khan is being pulled in too many directions or whatever the case might be. But there's, a significant number of people in, let's say, the IWC on the internet and the internet wrestling community that have spent this year saying that, WWE's creative is in the dumps. Everything they do is bad and AEW is on a rocket ship. And folks, I don't see that at all. I don't see it week to week on television. I certainly haven't seen it in the last 2 pay-per-views. I do agree that going into All In, they were humming. I think a lot of people forget, even for All In, like half the matches on that show either didn't have strong storyline, they were kind of just thrown together, but the top matches on that card were booked extremely strong, and the results we got truly, truly delivered. That's why that pay-per-view got such high marks. But coming out of that, man, especially the last 2 shows in particular, for me, it's been massive disappointments. And I said going in, I didn't think this was a show worth $50, and coming out, that's exactly how I feel. And the fact also, by the way, that you're starting this at 7 and you're putting, 3.5 matches on the pre-show because you're finishing one of them on the main card. You announce a match for the main card the day of and then add it to the show. So now you have, 13 total matches, and you're running a show until 12:30 for no reason whatsoever. You don't have WWE competing with you. You're not going up against some other major combat sports event. It's just you. Why is the show going until 12:30? Like, it's unnecessary. If they trimmed the fat here, booked some of the top matches better, you're talking about an A show, but neither of those things happened. And we wind up with an 86 out of 100, according to the Silver King. All right, folks, that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. I'll remind you that we are back Tuesday talking all things WWE, and we have a ton to talk about on that Tuesday episode. Of course, Thursday will be our next time talking AEW along with NXT. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to audio. Of course, we offer you something the others do not, and that is performance-enhancing audio. Only here at the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. So on the way out, first, don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show, and you can vote in our pre- and post-show polls on YouTube. When you subscribe there, you get full-length audio episodes and full-length video interviews across the board at Getting Overcast. Please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We're a free show. We're an ad-free show. We would greatly appreciate your financial support. And lastly,
it's all about the 5.
please do not forget that, because here at Getting Over, all we're asking is for you to head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. If you take a little extra time and leave a 5-star written review, we will read it live right here on the show. It helps us, we'd appreciate you, and it takes almost no time. So again, across the board, hit that 5-star button on Apple. Leave that review. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. This is the Silver King signing off, leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.